Please, Jack shouted. I'm sorry I was rude. Before you change us, I really need to tell Augusta some things. Thank you. The king looked at Jack for a long moment. Then he lowered his arms and the crowd grew silent. Thank you, said Jack. Augusta, listen to me. You should go back home. You're good for lots of things back there. You're very kind, and Mary said you have a brave heart and a fine mind. Those are really good things to have. Tears rolled down Augusta's cheek. She shook her head. Listen to me, please, Jack went on. Mary says you're not happy, but some things do make you happy, Augusta. You said you feel close to nature. You said you love simple folk, like Mary, and I know you love stories too. Mary said you remembered every story she told you. You used to tell them yourself, word for word. You have a great memory. He's right, Augusta, yelled Annie. Those are your gifts. You need to give your gifts to the world. Augusta was still for a moment, then she shook her head. I want to stay, she said. You've had your say, the High King shouted at Jack and Annie. Now prepare to become skunks. He raised his arms again. Oh, no, thought Jack. Wait, Finvara, said the High Queen. The High Queen stepped closer to Augusta. The Queen wore a silver cloak that glittered with diamonds. She had jewels in her long red hair that shone like stars. Her high, clear voice rang like a bell. I am Queen Ain of the She said. The boy said you love stories, and that you remember every story you hear. Is this true? Augusta nodded. Then listen now to our story, said Queen Ain. All the She were very still, watching Augusta and their queen. In the morning of time, out of a rosy sky and a windy light, we came, said Queen Ain. We were tribes of a supernatural people called the Tuatha De Danann. Strong, fearless, and noble we were. 5 roads carried our armies through the wild, wooded lands of Ireland, and for eons we ruled the Irish world. But when the humans came, the wild woods gave way to villages and pastures. Our tribes hid in the hollow hills, in ruined forts, and under the sea. Over time, we made ourselves smaller and smaller so we could easily hide from humans. Eventually, we became known as the She, and we were mocked as the wee folk of fairy. But in truth, we are a great tribe of the Tuatha De Danann, and we live in enchanted places like this, protected by what is left of our magic. Do you understand? I do, yes, breathed Augusta. Our stories were passed down for centuries in the old language of Ireland, but as the old language was replaced with English, the stories began to fade away, Queen Ain said. Go home now with your friends, human child. Go back for our sake. Seek out the old storytellers and ask them to tell you the tales of my people. Learn the old language. Read the old manuscripts. Write our stories down and share them before they are lost completely. Share them with all the people of Ireland and with all the world. Will you do that for us? Will you use your gifts to tell our stories and to restore our dignity? Augusta's eyes shone. Yes, she said. Yes, I will. Good. Then I will send you all swiftly home, said Queen Ain. She beckoned to a small dancer who stepped forward with a tiny silver chalice. Sip the honey nectar of the She, said the High Queen. She took the chalice and held it out to Augusta. Augusta took a sip. A second later, Jack felt cold wind and rain. He and Annie were standing on the bank of the river. Augusta was standing beside them too, and she was her normal size again. Chapter 10, Fare Thee Wells. Well, that was simple and direct, said Annie. Yeah, Jack felt dazed. Augusta looked at Jack and Annie. I saw them, she said, her eyes wide. I finally saw the She. I really saw them. She burst out laughing. Her laughter was so full of joy that Jack and Annie started laughing too. I saw them, Augusta kept repeating. I saw the She, and now I have important things to do. Yes, you do, said Annie. I must learn the old language, and I must start gathering stories at once. That's what Queen Ain told me. I can't wait to visit the old storytellers. There's Mary Sheridan and Biddy Early, too. I'll start with Mary. Let's go see her right now. Hurry. Will you come with me? Hurry. Sure, said Annie, but just a second. She turned to Jack. What about Willie? Who's Willie? Asked Augusta. A friend of ours, said Jack, looking around. He said he'd wait for us, but where he was going But where was he going to wait? "Willie! Willie!" called Annie. "I guess he's still somewhere on the other side of the river," said Jack. "That's too bad," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. "Come, let's go see Mary now," said Augusta, grabbing Annie's hand and pulling her along. Jack looked around for Willie one last time. He was sad about not seeing the leprechaun again, but he was a little relieved, too. He knew they couldn't keep their part of the deal, teaching Willie how to play the magic whistle. "Come on, Jack," cried Augusta. Jack followed the two girls through the wet meadow, over the stone wall, down the dirt lane, and across the muddy field to Mary Sheridan's cottage. "Mary! Mary!" Augusta called. She dashed ahead of Jack and Annie. She didn't even stop to knock. She threw open the door to the cottage. "Oh," she said, freezing in her tracks. Jack and Annie caught up with Augusta and looked inside. Mary was sitting in front of her fire. Next to her was a man wearing a green jacket and a three-cornered red cap with a feather. "Willie!" cried he. Jack hurried past Augusta to the car. "You're here, Jack?" "Of course. I'd wait," said the leprechaun. "I see you found your dear friend and brought her home. Good work." Augusta stood in the doorway, gaping at Willie. "Who are you?" she asked. "Name's Willie. Just plain Willie," said the leprechaun. "I usually leave before you visit Mary, but now that you've seen the she, I suppose there's no point in hiding from anymore." "Are you?" asked Augusta. "Who knows, the leprechaun? Maybe I'm real, and maybe you're not. Depends on which one of us is asking the question." Everyone laughed. "Good point," said Annie. "Well, better be home." He wanted to leave Willie, asked Annie for his whistle, and took Annie's hand and started back. "Thanks for help, Willie," he said. Yeah, thank you for everything," said Annie. "Goodbye, Augusta. Goodbye, everyone." "Wait just a minute, my friends," said "Oh," thought Jack. You know. Do you mind interrupting a story? Your interesting story. Do you understand? You are in story. You are in story time. "You forgot the deal, silly. My friend itching to make music for my friend Mary." "Oh, you see, there's a problem with that," said Jack, squirming. A frown crossed Willie's face. "Problem?" he said. How could they problem? Find your friend. Teach Willie to play the whistle. Doesn't better than that." "Right," said Jack. So what's the problem?" asked Willie. "Well, the whistle." Didn't know how to finish. "I'll answer that question," said Annie. "Willie, I'm going to be simple and direct with you." "Yes," said the leprechaun. "Merlin the magician gave us the whistle to help with our missions," said Annie. "The whistle is magic, and the magic only works once. Without the magic, I don't really know how to play, so I can't teach you. You have it." "Ah," said Willie. He looked at the floor and shook his head. "And I'm afraid I'm going to turn you both into chipmunks." What? said Jack. Willie burst out laughing. "Joking, only joking," he sighed. "Merlin, you should have told me you were friends with Merlin in the first place." "Do you know Merlin?" asked Jack. "Oh, yes. We spent a great deal of time together. Must be about 800 years ago now," said Willie. "How is he?" "He's happy," said Annie. Good. Willie turned back to Mary and Augusta. "I first master magician on the Isle of Merlin in the Irish Sea. He..." Wait, please, Willie, said Augusta. "Mary, do you have pen and paper?" "No, my dear, I'm afraid I don't," said Mary. "I can help," said Jack. He took his pencil and his small notebook out of his pocket. He tore some clean pages out of the notebook. Then he gave the pencil and pages to Augusta. "There," he said. "Oh, thank you, Jack," said Augusta. She turned back to Willie. "Continue, please." "Well," said Willie, "Merlin was only a few centuries old then, and I was a mere lad." As Willie told his story, Augusta began to write. Jack put his notebook back into his pocket and nodded to Annie. She nodded back, and the two of them started toward the door. Just as they were about to leave, he called out to us, "Goodbye." "We have to go home now," said Jack. "Trip lightly," said Willie. "Thank you for everything," said Augusta. 1 in 20 fare-thee-wells, said Mary. "Same to you guys," said Jack. Then he and Annie slipped out of the cottage. The rain was pouring again, and the wind was blowing hard. "I think we inspired Augusta," said Annie. "Yep, we accomplished our mission," said Jack. "Now let's get out of here." He couldn't wait to get home and get warm and dry. Jack and Annie ran against the wind. They climbed over the stone wall, and then they hurried down the lane, slipping and sliding in the muck. They ran across the soaked field. By the time they arrived at the rope ladder, their clothes were caked with mud. Jack and Annie climbed into the tree house. Annie found the Pennsylvania book in the corner. As rain blew through the window, she pointed to a picture of the Frog Creek woods. "I wish we could go there," she said. Ready to do this with me, you guys? The wind blew harder. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 11, Lady Gregory. "Ah, sunshine," said Jack. He closed his eyes and felt the sunshine streaming through the treehouse window. "And clean, dry clothes," murmured Annie. She placed the Pennsylvania book back in a corner. Jack took the magic whistle out of his pocket and placed it next to the book. "There, let's go home now," he said. "I want to look on the internet for information about Augusta." He started down the rope ladder. "Great idea," said Annie, following Jack. "We can find out what happened to her." Jack and Annie ran through the chilly Frog Creek woods. They crossed the street and hurried up the sparkling sidewalk to their yard. They trampled over the old snow up to their porch. Annie opened the front door and led the way inside. "Hi," Jack called. "We're back." "Hi," their mom called from the kitchen. "Did you have a nice break?" "Yes, we did," said Annie. "Good. Now get back to your homework. Now," said their mom, "so you can finish in time to go to the theater." "Okay," called Annie. She went to the computer desk and sat down. "What should I type?" she asked Jack. Jack pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "Well, we don't know her last name," he said, "so try Galloway, Augusta, and Irish Stories." Annie typed these words on the keyboard, then hit the Enter button. There were lots of choices for different websites. Annie clicked on the first one. On the screen was a black and white photograph of a woman. The caption under it said, "Lady Augusta Gregory." "Look, it's her," said Annie. The woman on the screen was middle-aged, but she still looked like Augusta. Her hair was parted neatly down the middle. Jack read aloud from the screen. Lady Augusta Gregory was born into a wealthy family in Galway, Ireland in 1852. She wrote over 40 plays and many poems and essays. She was the co-founder of the Abbey Theatre, the National Theatre of Ireland. Lady Gregory also learned the old language of Ireland and became well known for collecting Irish stories and legends and sharing them with the world. "Wow," said Annie. "Augusta did have a brave heart and a fine mind. And she must have liked our play, since she wrote 40 of her own and started her own theater." "Yes," said Jack, "she really turned out great." This reminded him of a question he'd asked himself earlier. "I wonder what I'm good for. I don't know how to do anything on that I didn't know how to do anything on that Irish farm." "Me neither," said Annie, "but hardly any kids today know how to do that kind of stuff." "So what would we do if all of our machines and computers broke down?" said Jack. "We'd have to figure out how to grow potatoes and make our own clothes and milk cows," said Annie. "I'd probably read some kind of instructions first, and then I'd give it a try," said Jack. "I'd probably give it a try first," said Annie, "and then read the instructions." Guys, right there, that tells us so much about these two characters. Remember we talked about that in class, how Jack was a little more cautious. He didn't jump into things right away, and he says here, "I'd read the instructions first, then give it a try." But Annie, she always kind of just does things and thinks later, and she says, "First I'd try it, then I'd read the instructions." Who do you think you're more like? I think Mrs. Russ is more like Annie. Well, Jack laughed. "I know some stuff we're good for," said Annie. "What?" said Jack. "First, we're good for helping each other." "Yeah, but," said Jack. "No, really, we help each other all the time," said Annie. "That's true," said Jack. "And we're good for helping Augusta," said Annie, "and helping Louis Armstrong, Mozart, and Leonardo da Vinci. We put the smile on Mona Lisa's face, remember?" Jack nodded. "Yep," he said. Maybe some of you have read that book. "And we're good for saving an orphan penguin, a huge octopus, and the cities of Tokyo, Venice, and New York," said Annie. "We're good for rescuing a baby gorilla from a leopard and school kids from a twister. We're good for helping Shakespeare, Clara Barton, and George Washington. We're good for rescuing 2 kids from a tsunami, a Lakota boy from a buffalo stampede, and a baby kangaroo and a koala from a forest fire. We're good for... Wait, stop, said Jack, stop. But that's not even half of it, said Annie. I know, said Jack, but that's plenty. I'm inspired. I'm ready to write that story for homework. I'll use my own experience. I have a little more than I thought. Cool, said Annie. She went back to reading about Lady Gregory on the computer. Jack grabbed a pencil and pulled out his notebook. He moved to the couch and sat down. As late winter light slanted into the living room, he began to write. And that is the end. More facts from Jack and Annie. I'm going to read those in just a minute. But I was just thinking about how Jack said, what would we do if all of our machines broke down and we had to learn to do new things? And it made me think about what's going on with us right now, that nothing broke down, but there's some germs going around that we're trying to keep everybody safe and healthy. And so you're having to learn how to do school and how to spend your days in a whole different way, aren't you? I know Mrs. Russ is too, and it feels really weird. I went into school today for just a minute to grab some picture books because I want to read some more books to you. But it felt so weird, you guys, because you weren't there. So I know that before we know it, we're going to be back together. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep reading you stories. Okay, more facts from Jack and Annie. Irish fairies. There was a time when many people in Ireland believed in fairies who lived inside mounds of earth. The name for Irish fairies is she. In Ireland, the word she is pronounced she. To avoid confusion in the story, I refer to the fairies as the she. That was the author, Mary Pope Osborne. Leprechauns are a type of male Irish fairy. In folk tales, they often work as shoemakers or tailors, and they're thought to have hidden pots of gold. Leprechauns are featured on St. Patrick's Day, a national holiday in Ireland celebrated on March 17. Lady Gregory. When she was a child, Lady Gregory's full name was Isabella Augusta Percy, though everyone called her Augusta. After she grew up, she married Sir William Henry Gregory. As the wife of a knight, she was called Lady Gregory. Ireland's most famous poet is William Butler Yeats. He was a very good friend of Lady Gregory's. Together, in 1904, they founded Dublin's Abbey Theatre, the National Theatre of Ireland. William Butler Yeats often accompanied Lady Gregory when she visited cottages and collected Irish folklore. It was said that Lady Gregory had a natural genius for remembering the direct speech of storytellers. In her many years of traveling, listening, transcribing, and publishing, Lady Gregory gave value to the stories, to the mind and the imagination of the Irish country people, and then the Irish language. From the 1600s to the early 1900s, the language of Ireland, called Irish Gaelic, was replaced by English in many parts of Ireland. During the struggle for Irish independence in the 20th century, the desire to learn the old language, or Celtic, became very strong in Ireland. In 1922, Irish Gaelic became the official language of the country along with English. Today, Irish Gaelic is taught in Irish public schools. Lady Gregory's knowledge of Irish Gaelic helped her when she went to visit cottages and collect stories, because a lot of the country folk only spoke Irish Gaelic. So the only way that Lady Gregory could collect these stories and write them down was if she could also speak Irish Gaelic. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to understand what they were telling her. This was so cool, you guys. I saw this at the back, and I thought this might be something really fun you might like to do. Of course, get your parents' help and permission, but this looked like a really fun little science experiment. So, it says, in Leprechaun in Late Winter, Willie the Leprechaun leads Jack and Annie to Augusta Gregory. Legend says that if you follow a rainbow, it will take you to a leprechaun's pot of gold. Follow the directions below to create a rainbow at home. It just might lead to an afternoon of fun. You will need whole or 2% milk, a small plate or a shallow bowl, food coloring. You'll need red, yellow, and blue, and liquid dish soap, like Dawn or Palmolive. 1. Pour the milk onto the plate until a thin layer of milk covers the bottom. Imagine the plate is the face of a clock, and squeeze 2 drops of red food coloring onto the milk at 12 o'clock. Squeeze 2 drops of yellow food coloring onto the milk at 4 o'clock. Squeeze 2 drops of blue food coloring onto the milk at 8 o'clock. Now squeeze a drop of liquid dish soap into the middle of the milk. Watch the food coloring swirl and mix to create a rainbow of colors. Hey, if you guys do this, send me some pictures or a little video of you guys doing this. And then at the back of this book, like at the back of so many books, there's a puzzle. So I'm going to try to make this really good so you can see it. It's called The Puzzle of the Leprechaun. Jack and Annie and Augusta had a fun magical adventure in Ireland. Answer the following questions to put your knowledge of leprechauns in late winter to the test. You can use a notebook or make a copy of the page. Okay, number 1, Jack and Annie must something Augusta. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters. So you're going to write the letters. You would write it just like this and circle this one here. Okay, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4 letters. Somebody Sheridan is Augusta's friend. And again, you would want to circle the first letter. Jack and Annie are almost changed into something. Let's see if you remember. 4, the something take Augusta. Turn the page. 5, Augusta's family lives in the big. 6, the she live in a blank hill. 7, Augusta wears a red blank. 8, Queen, somebody, is a ruler of the she. Now, once you get all your answers, and you might want to do this on a piece of paper, circle, like put a circle around any of the letters that have the circle. So I'm going to go back a minute. So like on number 1, we can do this one together. Number 1, Jack and Annie must do what? If you said inspire, you are right. So you would write, just like this, you would write I-N-S-P-I-R-E. And you would want to circle the R because that's going to help you solve a riddle. And then 2, somebody Sheridan is a best friend. So write down her name, first name, circle. And then Jack and Annie almost changed into. What did they almost say changed into? That's where I left it yesterday. And you're gonna go the second. The blank takes Augusta. Do you remember how to spell it? Give you a clue. E. Okay, 5. Augusta's family is in the big blank. That's the thing that Jack and Annie were looking for at the beginning. Circle the first letter. She the blank hill. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a tricky one. 7. Augusta wears a red blank. And Queen blank is a ruler of she. And if you look back in the video, you see how to spell her name. Now look at your answers. Answers of the letter circled spell a word. Word is all scrolled. Can you unscramble the letters to complete the final puzzle? Here's the clue. Leprechaun, symbol of Ireland. Another symbol of Ireland is the blank. Come back here in a little while. The answer. I'll post you of the answer. For reading, guys, it was fun. Story. Probably a picture. Are you alert today? For now, having time figuring out the answer to the puzzle and all.